Hello, thank you for joining us. Today I am here and I am joined with Pastor Paul from the Flatland Reform Church in Brooklyn. Today we're going to be talking about men and mental health, being that June is the month that we celebrate and make more awareness of man and mental health and the importance of it. We thought it would be so great to bring on Pastor Paul and just get some insight on what is his thoughts around mental health and men. Thank you for joining us, Pastor Paul. Happy to have you here today.
Thank you for inviting me and welcoming me.
Yes. So the first thing I want to start off with is asking you, what does mental health mean to you as a man?
That's a very interesting question because I think that certainly in the times in which we live, and most recently, we've seen a mental health crisis, especially among men, and particularly among men of color. It is a silent killer. I should say poor mental health is a silent killer. And as I think about it from a pastoral perspective and through a biblical lens, the mind is one of the greatest gifts that God has given.
Yes.
People, right? And so caring for our mind, caring for our mental health is one component, and I would argue a major component toward holistic good health.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Very powerful. I like the part where you said that how mental health and the mental itself is so powerful, right? And it's God's gift. I think the most important thing is to always pray for a sound mind, because the mind actually leads everything for us, right? If the mind, it goes, everything within us goes, right?
Absolutely. The body follows the mind,
it sure
right?
Does. It sure does.
Yeah. So if the mind is off, then there's a very real possibility that the body is off. And even in terms of healing, right?
Come on.
Most healing, in fact, I would again argue that all healing begins in the mind.
Yes, it does.
That if the mind doesn't grasp the potential for healing that exists, or even is able to grasp the hope of the potential for healing, then that makes it very difficult for the body to respond to treatment, to therapeutic avenues and courses of for recovery.
Very true. Very true. Growing up, what messages did you receive as a child around emotions and how to express them and regulate them?
So I grew up in an Afro-Caribbean household, and I grew up. I'm part of the baby boomer generation, so I'm a dinosaur, and I grew up at a time where the civil rights was at its apex. Martin Luther King had just been assassinated. You had the assassination of King and Malcolm X. So there was always this tension in, I would say, black households of being strong. The reality that no matter what you encountered, no matter what society presented to you, you had to be strong.
Yes.
And, you did not have the luxury to show weakness, which means you couldn't cry, which means you had to stuff whatever you were feeling. Yeah. But I think, also there's this internal PSTD because you have no outlet for the fact that you're dealing or facing societal obstacles or barriers just simply based on the color of your skin, but then also the expectations of manhood, right? In a society where the deck is stacked against you, or as Elizabeth Warren said, the game is rigged.
Yeah. So true, so true. How can family, friends, and even the church support mental health or support someone who's going through a mental health crisis, particularly the church, I would say?
So I think one of the things that, if we step back, right, from a secular perspective, meaning from a perspective outside the church, we must recognize the church's limitations. most pastors are trained theologically, but we're not trained in terms of therapy. We're not trained in terms of, dealing with psychology and those kinds of things. So it's going to take, and one of the things we do at FRC at Flatlands, because my wife is a therapist, she's a licensed therapist, is we realized that it takes a multidisciplinary approach.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I think that the church, which is why HCC was our first partner and now one of our longest standing partners, the church needs to really lean and press into partnerships.
Yes.
Who are the entities in your community, in your neighborhood, or that surround the physical plant that have not only the resources but the expertise to supplement whatever the church can offer.
Mm-hmm.
So in many cases, like in our case, space is our greatest value. So we're able to offer space, which at one time, HCC was able to come in, use the space, and then they were able to provide counseling and interventions on site.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, as we move forward, it would be in churches' best interest to really look at these partnerships, to look at the existing resources, and to then consider and be in conversation with partners as to how can we collectively and collaboratively address the mental health issues in respective communities.
Thank you. And I know that we're short for time, mm-hmm. and I want us to, do this again for you to come back, because there's so many more layers to this when it comes to mental health and community and people of color and men and churches, and how we could come together and really collaborate on these things together.
Absolutely.
But I thank you, Pastor Paul, for being here with us today.
Thank you.
This is not the end of it here at ACC. And as Pastor Paul has stated before, the most important thing here at ACC and for our community is to really have these collaborations and, of course, keep on communicating and having these communications together as a community. Thank you.